Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios today. Again, these stories about the Afghan peace process, the future of Afghanistan regarding the current happenings, and interestingly, a very important statement coming from none other than the Chief of Army Staff. Now, you will, when you say that US, United States of America, will not get bases in Pakistan, very categorically said by the Prime Minister, also by the Chief of Army Staff. So things are very clear. No matter what the consequences are, they are leaving behind an Afghanistan which is not at all stable. It is not heading towards a civil war. The civil war has already started. Maybe there is some sort of an exaggeration about the overall control and command of the Taliban, but having said that, Kabul is going to be the main point of resistance by the government. Now, where will it lead? What exactly is going to happen? How things will improve? What sort of a threat is being posed to Pakistan? I think that is going to be the most important factor. And since we have also noticed that during the last couple of weeks, a lot of attacks on our FC soldiers or our military checkpoints, on civilian areas. Yesterday there was another bombing that took place in Quetta, where a certain convoy was targeted, in which 5 soldiers were seriously injured. Other than that, about a week ago, 5 soldiers were killed. 2 were killed about 2 days ago. And then there was another bomb blast that took place in Lahore. So things are not that great. This is what we were fearing. Where will it lead? Now, that's a million-dollar question. To talk about that, let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. And after that, we'll also show you a report. But we have with us on Skype Brigadier Retired Mahmood Shah Saab, who is a senior analyst. And we also have with us Mia Sanullah, the former ambassador. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, sir. And in our studio, we'll be joined in shortly by Syed Muhammad Ali, who's the Director of Strategic Affairs, CASS. But gentlemen, before we start our conversation, let's watch this report.
Afghanistan has remained a challenge since the US-led NATO forces landed there after the 9/11 attack. Pakistan has paid a hefty price in the US-led war against terror with a sacrifice of over 70,000 lives. Despite all these sacrifices, the US Terrorism Report 2019 showed the dissatisfaction of the US administration regarding Pakistan's efforts to eradicate terrorism. The geopolitical landscape of South Asia is changing dynamically, and the US is pulling out, leaving behind an unstable and insecure Afghanistan. Prime Minister Imran Khan has altogether rejected any possibility of Pakistan being the part of the conflict with the US, while suggesting partners in peace with the United States. An in-camera meeting of the Parliamentary Committee on National Security also took place on Thursday at the Parliament House with the country's security apparatus. Amid the impending regional turmoil, the briefing was aimed to take political leadership and all stakeholders on board regarding future trajectory of the country to navigate purportedly turbulent geopolitical shifts.
So to talk about this, as I earlier mentioned, we have Brigadier Retired Mahmood Shah and Mia Sanullah Saab with us. Brigadier Saab, let me start off from you, sir. When we say that the United States of America will not get any bases in Pakistan, no matter what the cost is, no matter what sort of a threat perception is there, no matter what sort of consequences we have to, in fact, face at some stage. Your take on this point, sir, because I remember we have done so many shows also regarding the issue when even Pakistan came under some sort of a threat from the Afghan side, when Afghan soil was being used against Pakistan by RAW, by CIA and other intelligence agencies. Now, my point to you, sir, is that when we talk about consequences, yes, sir, we have seen what's going on regarding FATF. I mean, we have complied on almost 26 out of 27 points. I mean, that kind of a compliance, and still you in the gray area, that doesn't make sense. There are so many other countries much poorer than Pakistan. They are in the white list. So yes, they can twist our arm when they want to, but there is a limit. There has to be a limit. Your take, sir. Brigadier Saab. Brigadier Saab, can you hear me, sir? Hello? Brigadier Mahmood, hello? Okay, let me put the same question to Mia Sanullah Saab, the former ambassador, and we'll get in touch with Brigadier Saab. I think there seems to be a technical problem. Ambassador Saab, please.
Actually, it is a well considered. Brigadier Saab is saying something.
In
Should
fact,
I
maybe
continue?
is the sir, can you unmute your device, please, sir? Brigadier Saab. I can't hear you, sir. Brigadier Saab, if you can hear me, can you unmute your device, please? Or if there is a technical problem, sir, let me start off from Ambassador Sanullah and then I'll get back to you on that, sir. Ambassador Saab, you may continue, please.
Basically, you are right that there can be only a limit. We have done whatever has been within our capacity to fulfill 26 out of the 27 objections. Even the last one, we are trying our best. And there are so many other countries which have just given pledges and they have come up with some bills and introduced some laws, and they have been spared this gray list, and they have graduated from gray to clear white one. In contest of the Afghanistan situation, I think America can use it, and but as you put it very rightly, there is a limit. Pakistan can live with it, and Pakistan has enough friends. Pakistan has enough means to go along with it. And with the new shift in its foreign policy, it can survive. This is what I feel as far as FATF is concerned. But Pakistan has to look at what is happening in Afghanistan. As you put it, Kabul seems to be the issue or the point of conflict now. There is a drift from instability to civil war. Nobody seems to be in a position where the Kabul regime would fall so quickly, or can make Ashraf Ghani to fall so quickly. Ashraf Ghani has got the support of American supports. Even within after the withdrawal of all the troops, it would be difficult to capture Kabul within 6 months or 8 months. We should remember President Najibullah overstayed 3 years after the withdrawal of the Soviet troops in in April 1992, and now regime is getting Ghani's regime is getting assistance, 4 billion, close to 4 billion, and then Kabul airport remains intact, and then they have trained military and police forces, national police forces, and though Taliban are taking districts, they did it, they seized 20, more than 20 in just 1 week, in last 10 days. But they are nowhere near that point where they can claim or they can rightly claim that they would be able to defeat the central forces. So it is a difficult situation. They will have to change their strategy. They will have to start talking seriously and with the other factions. Pakistan has been in touch with them, trying to persuade them. Not so far. so successful, but the effort is still on. And we believe that if there is going to be more drift towards anarchy or chaos, it would have serious fallout not only for Pakistan but other neighboring countries too. And it would mean no prosperity, no development, no implementation of any economic agenda.
Exactly,
We
Ambassador.
could
That's
see.
what I really wanted to ask British Sahab also, that what was the agenda of the Americans? I mean, they've stayed here for over 2 decades now. They're leaving behind, great enough, but leaving behind a very unstable and mismanaged Afghanistan, number one. And secondly, what have they gained? Al Qaeda is there. There are more non-state actors. Their presence is there. Their power factor seems to be, gaining strength in almost a daily basis. And there is Hizb-ut-Tahrir, there is Hizb-ut-Tahrir, there is Daesh, there is Al Qaeda, there is TTP for that matter. I mean, who is going to look after that? I mean, was it done on some sort of, when we say that this was done on purpose? And this is exactly what the Chief of Army Staff has said, that, they have done it on purpose. They wanted to leave that sort of an Afghanistan that should be a problem for the entire region, for China, for Pakistan, for Russia, for Iran for that matter. British Sahab, your take, sir. I hope you can hear me this time. Brigadier Mahmood Shah, can you hear me, sir? I think there's some sort of a technical problem. We'll try to take him over the telephone instead of Skype. But we have also been joined in by Sayyid Mohammed Ali. Thank you so much, Ali. Now, would you like to respond to the same question now?
Yes, I think it's a very important question. I think it's the writing is on the wall, and I'll just take it from where Ambassador Sanaullah just left. I think what's going on in Afghanistan is basically three things. The Afghan Taliban are making lightning gains on the ground. And the Afghan National Security Forces are ceding ground. Secondly, the international forces, particularly the US, Italians and Germans are leaving. Bagram base.
Germans have almost left,
and Bagram base, which is one of the most important bases in Afghanistan, has been left. The last C-17 flight has left Bagram Air Base. So that also translates into optics and psychological damage to the Afghan National Security Forces, that they're losing support, material, diplomatic, political,
moral, financial,
absolutely. Their morale is not very high. Secondly, at the political level, the situation is worsening, because as Ambassador Sahab also said, there is hardly any successful effort to reach, despite Pakistan's best efforts, to reach a political solution to the problem within Afghanistan by bringing all the Afghan stakeholders, which is necessary, but unfortunately does not seem very likely. The third dynamic is the diplomatic. There is very intense diplomacy going on around the world. Afghan Taliban, as we have repeatedly said to the international community in general and the Americans in particular, that the international community must not overestimate our leverage over Afghan Taliban, because they are dealing with everybody. There was a lot of pressure on them to go to Istanbul, but they decided not to go. Right? And there is still pressure coming that, Turkey should be allowed to take care of the Kabul airport, but the Afghan Taliban do not seem willing to give them. But in fact, they have written a letter to the Turkish government that you should explain your support for General Abdul Rashid Dostum. What is your interest in that? So they are very mature.
The Uzbek factor.
The Uzbek factor as well. And I think Pakistan is doing a very important role, very critical role in terms of engaging with all the regional countries, all the neighbors. Prime Minister Imran Khan is expected to visit Uzbekistan later this month. Let me announce it on your show, in which we are trying to encourage our Uzbek friends, the Uzbek leadership, to exercise their leverage on the Northern Alliance, on the Uzbek factions, so that they also come up with some sort of peace and reconciliation with the other.
What sort of an equation is currently there between the Uzbek leadership and the Tajik? this, Ahmad Shah Massoud's brother or his son for that matter? Are they on the same page, or do they have some sort of a conflict?
They have some cooperation
Okay.
and understanding, but they're not on the same page, to use that term. But what Pakistan is doing, I must highlight, is that Pakistan's effort is to engage with all Afghan stakeholders. I know personally Ambassador Sadiq, he has gone on and personally met the son of Ahmad Shah Massoud. He welcomed him. He is engaging with all the Uzbek, Tajik,
Because I think
and other.
hats
That
off
is
to
very
Ambassador,
important,
because he's so well connected with almost all the factions there.
and that is the core principle of our Afghan policy, that we need to make Pakistan and Pakistanis acceptable to all Afghan factions. That is in national interest of Pakistan. Secondly, coming back to the US military departure and that of the Western countries, I think the Afghan Taliban are welcoming that. But the main concern, which Ambassador Sanaullah also highlighted, is that Foreign Minister of Russia, Lavrov Saab, mentioned and warned that this volatile Afghan situation is being exploited by Daesh. And he warned that they are trying to reassert themselves and gain ground. And that is something that the international community in general, but the neighbors of Afghanistan, must timely and effectively and collectively work to address. Because no country, although Pakistan has suffered the most, but it is very important that Pakistan should lead a regional diplomatic initiative involving all the neighbors of Afghanistan, that what can we do to deny space to any extra-regional spoilers, and also
But Sir
address.
Mohammadi, they're already there. They're gaining strength as well.
Yes, but there are routes and there are ways in which they are getting the support. So it is in
They
the
need to be blocked.
collective interest, and that answers your primary question, that the sufferers are the neighbors of Afghanistan. Like the army chief has pointed out, that it is the neighbors of Afghanistan which are suffering because of the Afghan instability. So the onus is on the neighbors of Afghanistan to come up with a common plan to bring stability to Afghanistan, to engage with their respective stakeholders over which they enjoy their individual and respective leverage. For example, Uzbekistan enjoys leverage over the Uzbeks. Tajikistan enjoys leverage over the Tajiks. Iranians over Hazaras. Pakistan over the Pashtuns. So we need to sit together. If Afghanistan has to become stable, secure, and a normal nation state, then all these neighbors have to play their part. No one country, whether it is Pakistan or whether it is US or whether it is Russia or China, can individually do that. That is the unfortunate and costly lesson of history.
All right. Now, Brigadier Saab, let me come to you, sir. I hope you can hear me this time. Brigadier Mahmood Shah.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great, sir. Now, sir, there was a statement by the military leadership the other day that the civil war had already started in Afghanistan, and the pace which has been told to the rest of the world regarding the capturing of the areas by the Afghan Taliban, that's exaggerated. So let's throw light on that, sir, because what we have been hearing, that they are gaining ground on almost daily basis without even firing a single bullet. And most of these security forces and the employees of the Afghan government, they are surrendering without even any sort of a confrontation or anything of that sort. Your take, sir.
I think, yes, those sort of videos, clips which are shown here and there on the social media are slightly exaggerated on ground. People have started moving. They are consolidating their positions. And I think that is very normal. But we can say that there were extra regional powers in Afghanistan, like the America, and then there were some who were working there within Afghanistan under the Americans, and probably with their sort of agreement, they were doing all this. So those powers are going to get weakened. And I think we need to go, like my friends here now have been saying this, very forcefully that we have to go to the regional solution. In the region, we have Russia, and along with these three Central Asian republics, they all have stakes in Afghanistan and Pakistan, of course, China, of course, and Iran, and probably Turkey can also join in as a Muslim country. We are to control, and we are to make these people sit together and tell them that they should not fight and they should come out with a formula. I think the initial suggestion is a very broad-based government. And then within that broad-based government, of course, we should seek the solution, which is long-term solution. It is only these regional powers who can look for a solution in Afghanistan, who can have a solution in Afghanistan. So I think this is the way to go about it, and I think not to get unnerved unnecessarily. We in Pakistan is a strong country, and we should be really getting unnerved that this is going to happen in Afghanistan. It's all right. If there are fights amongst themselves, they have been fighting previously also, and fallout from Afghanistan, we are in much better position now as compared to years ago when there was hardly anything on the western border. But now we have put the steel there. We have we have done away with the FCR along the border. We have strengthened this border. We have increased the number of Malaysia along the border. So I think that the situation is that we are far better prepared to meet any sort of fallout from Afghanistan.
Now, Brigadier Sahab, a couple of factors which are very important. One, there is the prediction that there could be around 500,000 to 700,000 refugees coming in. The civil war is not starting, it has already started, number one. Though the casualties, they are very much unknown, but they are limited. That's what we understand. But sir, you talk about the fencing. 90% of that fencing has been completed. Great enough. More soldiers or more troops or more FC on the border to look after the affairs. Great. Better surveillance. Amazing. Do you think, sir, that is enough? Because now there is no US forces present inside Afghanistan. No NATO forces there. So it's all up to them. Is that a threat? Or will it be a threat in the future?
We have 4 million of Afghan refugees. Addition of another 500,000 probably is not really very material. What we are worried that now we have the CPEC inside in Balochistan, and we are to protect that also. So I think the fears out of Afghanistan are getting exaggerated a little. If there are more refugees like 500,000, you mentioned 700,000, it's okay. We have a capacity. We had many more, much more than for.
But sir, this time the problem is that let's suppose there are 500 more refugees coming into Pakistan. But the factor is, sir, how would you ensure that most of them are not a part of the TTP for that matter, or Daesh, or they could be miscreants coming into Pakistan and carrying out all sort of activities which the Indians want them to. So how would we ensure that, sir? Is there any planning? Because Brigadier Sahab, I remember when General Kiani, during the time of Pakistan People's Party, we had a very important meeting, and you were there as well, along with some journalists in the Army House, and we were there as well. And the idea was to, go for the Sawat operation. I remember, sir, there were a lot of ifs and buts. There were a lot of issues regarding the IDPs. Later on, we called them the TDPs. But in this factor, sir, we are talking about the Afghan refugees coming in. And coming in, maybe 500,000 is not the right number. It could be about 1 million, maybe more. Because you're talking about a full-fledged war there, sir. We have any contingency plans so far? Or we are still thinking on those lines, sir?
Thinking about it for 5 years now. All these activities were started 5 years ago. And now we have almost completed 90% of those things, and things are improving every day. The TTP that you are mentioning, their ID cards have been blocked, and they are well recognized. In fact, there are lists which have been prepared. So there is some sort of worry, but I think we need not really exaggerate. Pakistan is a very strong country. Uh, we have sort of better relation with the Taliban, and we are giving them better advice not to really capture Kabul by force. We are telling them to really not show their strength and really start the fight. The other people who are there who are blaming Pakistan for everything, I think we are talking to them also. So we are on the right direction. That in Afghanistan we have no favorites. We should not have any favorites, and we should work for all the Afghans. We should make an effort that all the Afghans sit together, and they should work out a formula. They should look for a political solution, and that is how things will go. But in between, if a sort of threat is posed towards Pakistan, I'm sure it need not be exaggerated.
All right. Ambassador Saab, another very important issue, and I want you to throw light on that, and that is about the overall threat perception towards Pakistan. Yes, fencing the border is great. You are, beefing up your security there as well. Sounds really good. But sir, the threat is still there. It's a porous border. We all know that. There are families on this side, there are families on the other side. But my point to you, sir, is if there is a threat, what sort of a threat? Are we also thinking about more bombings in Pakistan taking place, hard targets as well as soft targets, they'll be exploited by the Indians, especially by using the Afghan soil. And sir, what if the Americans finally agree with the Indians, since they have a pact, BETA, if you remember, sir, correct? That says that they can use their bases, they can share the technology, they can share the intelligence, and so much more that wasn't even disclosed. There was this some sort of an activity regarding a small drone in the Jammu Air Force Base, and they exaggerated it to an extent. Again, blame Pakistan for that, the Indians. What if that base is handed over to the Americans to sort of have their presence, monitor Afghanistan, monitor Pakistan, and monitor China for that matter, sir? What sort of a threat would that be for Pakistan? And what would be the future of Kashmir? Because that's directly related.
Let me start
Ambassador
on
Saab.
the last section of your question. I do not think that Indian would hand over the use of their base for this kind of operations. It would indeed create a very vicious circle where Indian would be the loser. Now, the fallout from the continued instability, rather I would say anarchy or chaos, deep chaos, which is going to follow if Taliban do not agree to Pakistan's sane advice to start political process, then the fallout for Pakistan would be dangerous. Management of border is one thing, but as you pointed out, porous nature of the border, and then the sleeping operation, then the fifth war, Cactus, all these things combined together carries potent threat for our economic diplomacy or big project we have lined up in order to connect Pakistan with the outside world through CPEC and other projects. So it is going to be a dangerous phase for Pakistan. For me, in my view, Taliban are not in a position to have control in major part of Afghanistan. They are organizing themselves, and they have learned a lot, but still they don't have the capacity and they don't have the manpower. They may not have continued supply of weapons with them, whereby they can defeat not only the central
Sir,
government.
they are capturing the weapons from the Afghan forces. And we have all witnessed that. We have seen those in videos. And secondly, sir, Taliban, for some reason, sir, they have the street power. They have their presence felt all over Afghanistan. And especially when we learn that instead of the southern side, the northern side is just, a favorite sort of a spot for them to fight. They can take over Kunduz anytime they want. They are capturing the areas around it. You talk about the border of Tajikistan, sir. They are controlling that. Most of the Afghan forces, they have fled towards Tajikistan. What I'm saying is that those areas where they never had that kind of a control, they have controlled that first. So aren't we undermining their authority or their power, sir?
No, let me tell you that they had once captured Kunduz, but they had to vacate it. In any case, in different areas, even along that border.
Sir, because there was aerial bombing on them, if you remember that famous C-130, which in fact fired upon a hospital, Doctors Without Borders, if I'm not wrong. And so many people got killed because they thought the Taliban were being treated there. What my point is that, sir, this is going to happen once the American forces or that kind of a support isn't available to the opposite party, sir. So Taliban, I mean, we are just thinking as if, they are nothing, they're nobody, sir. They were there during the American presence for 20 years. And they have made sure that the Americans should vacate, and they eventually vacated.
No, basically, I'm not saying that they are nobody. They have the capacity, and that is the reason they have been accepted politically, and America was forced to sign an agreement with them. But that agreement has its political framework, and the American president has just assured Afghan president that they would continue to support the money, the funds, not as anticipated by central government, say 8 billion per annum. They agree to provide $3 billion, and maybe something else is coming. And there are other nations around, not so far, they have been named, they would be willing to support Ashraf Ghani. Ashraf Ghani has built up its own equation, and they have started enlisting civilians against Taliban. And there are many forces. Taliban are very popular in the itraf of big cities, but don't forget that in 20 years there is a small section, but which are educated, which have developed, say, women and other peoples, professionals, and they want to improve their relationship, and they want to stick to the gains, whatever they have, they feel have been achieved during the past 20 years. Now, then there is a vested interest, which is a status quo kind of forces who are really interested to keep continuing the instability and the chaos, which they benefit a lot. Then you Daesh and other forces are there. They are going to exploit. The proxies would continue. The regional forces, yes, they combine together. They will have some influence on Taliban, but in my calculations, in next few months or even more than 1 year, I do not see them succeeding to persuade Taliban to agree to a formula which in their view would be conceding the gains of the battlefield on table. They would agree to one formula whereby they will have a lion's stake in the coalition government or where they would not feel threatened. They are not prepared to pronounce what kind of government they want. Islamic, yes, Islamic interpretation is different from the
But that is exactly, sir, because if you're talking about democracy, that is not at all acceptable to them. Ambassador Saab, I'll come back to you, but let me also engage Ali Saab here. Ali, couple of points. It seems that we are undermining the strength of the Taliban. Good, bad or ugly, they're for their country, but whatever is happening, it's a reality. Number two, sir, Jordan Pine issue. Whether you fence it or you don't, that is going to be another, I would say, bone of contention, another very important point of confrontation. You talk about the Islam, the tribal Afghan version of Islam, that is what they want. And secondly, sir, you talk about the support. Yes, the Russians are supporting them 110% because they were engaged with them for the last 5-6 years. And then, sir, you talk about the Chinese. How would the Americans like them to go for the particular expansion plan where they are making Quad? If you remember, the first meeting that was held once Joe Biden took charge was regarding Quad. And now they're leaving this place in an absolute turmoil, absolute unstable condition. Sir, OBOR, CPEC, BRI, I mean, obviously these are the major areas. I mean, why would the Americans let the Afghan situation be not fluid? They really would like it to be that way, along with the support of the Indians. So what sort of an equation do you see, sir?
Thank you so much.
Very complex situation,
yes,
isn't it?
I'll briefly highlight three aspects which has been discussed. I have a slightly different view, and I agree with your view that it's not for me or us to pass judgment that what sort of political government or ideology is suitable for Afghanistan.
How can you persuade them not to have their version of Islam?
It is not for me to pass judgment. It is up to the Afghan people to decide what type of political system or ideology they want to live under, number one. Secondly, Afghan Taliban's rise and expansion is a reality. Okay? And when we talk about Afghan Taliban, they have transformed themselves significantly in the last 20 years. What has actually happened? When you look at their strategy in 3 words, basically they have a diplomatic aspect, a diplomatic prong, they have a political prong, and then they have a military prong. You need to understand their office, their embassy, if I can use the word, in Doha has been functioning for so many years.
Oh, yes.
So they are engaged with the Americans for so many
Emirates.
years. Yes. Okay. And secondly, people often overlook the fact that the Doha agreement was a bilateral agreement between the US, the superpower, and a non-state actor, which is a historic document. It legitimizes.
Wasn't it all liked by Ashraf Ghani?
Yeah, and Afghan, I mean, Kabul administration was not part of it. So it legitimizes them, whether you like it or not. So even the Americans have resigned to that reality. Now, quickly, they are using their political engagement with they have developed a peace and reconciliation committee which they send in order to try to isolate the hardliners within NDS and Afghan National Security Forces, and they disincentivize even non-Pashtun elements to fight them, and this strategy has worked, very smart strategy. Secondly, they are engaged diplomatically with all the major powers. Okay, so we see, like you rightly pointed out, a substantive, meaningful engagement with Chinese, with Russians, with Iranians, with Pakistanis, and other Central Asian countries as well. Now, and so their military expansion and rise is not divorced from their political and diplomatic prong. That's what the Afghanistan, what's going on. Now, quickly coming back to what it means for Pakistan. I share the hope and optimism that Brigadier Saab showed in terms of the likely dynamics of Afghanistan. However, I must emphasize that hope is not a strategy. Okay, so it is very important that it is not only whether Afghan Taliban can conquer Afghanistan or not, but there are rise of spoilers like Daesh, like BLA, like TTP,
yes, that is another very important
so
factor,
it is, let me bring back yesterday's briefing to the parliamentary committee. It is very important that it was a timely initiative by the military leadership that they should take the political leadership into confidence across the board of all dispensations, because we need to do 4 things quickly. We need to forge our ranks, unite ourselves, shed our ethnic, ideological, other differences right now, because if the situation worsens in Afghanistan,
That
and
is
we can,
likely going to
which is
happen.
likely, I hope not, but we need to be prepared in 3 things. Once the Afghan immigrants arrive, Afghan refugees arrive, we need to take care of them at the borders. We need to be, our bordering areas, the district administration need to be prepared, equipped and ready to ensure they are vaccinated there, so that there is not another spike in
Influx
of COVID. We need to register them, we need to profile them, we maybe even if we need to have some sort of chip and restriction in terms of their movement. We should learn from our mistakes. You remember I said on your program earlier, 2 million refugees went to Iran. Why did Iranians didn't face the suicide bombing, Kalashnikov culture and everything? Because we let them go everywhere.
Yes,
so
most of them got settled in Karachi.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is the onus is on the district administration. We should learn from our mistakes.
think
We
that's a
should
very
manage
important
that, and also rally international community like United Nations High Commission for Refugees, which has also complained about the lack of international commitment,
All right.
because taking care of the Afghan refugees is not just a Pakistani issue.
All right. Sir, last quick comment, Brigadier Saab, from you, sir, because we are totally running out of time. Sir, $3 billion a year, that's what Joe Biden promised them and ensured that, you know, they'll look after the affairs. But, sir, obviously, whosoever is going to be in power would be looking at that particular chunk. Simple as that. If Chinese, for some reason, because that is the only country that can look after the Afghan affairs through financial means, you know, takes this particular opportunity, do you think things would be better for Pakistan? And all those non-state actors, instead of being encouraged, would be discouraged, sir?
In fact, I would say, in order to do away with these fears, I remember having been part of war games in which we war gamed the Russian attack on Pakistan as to what could they do and how are we going to fight them. So as compared to that, when I look at situation today, I feel for Pakistan, it will not be much of a problem. As far as China is concerned, I think the main CPEC route is now passing through Pakistan, and you never know that in future, Pakistan may not become another like Israel is for America. Pakistan becomes a sort of important area for Chinese. And since they have the resources, they can be expected to do anything. However,
All right, Brigadier Saab, thank you so much, sir, for your comments. It was a pleasure having you, Ambassador Saab, and thank you so much, Ali, for your
Always a
presence as
pleasure.
well. But as we all say that the situation in Afghanistan is very fluid, it is going to be very challenging for Pakistan, because what we have witnessed earlier, the way Pakistan was targeted, the kind of losses we have witnessed, whether human losses or financial losses, the magnitude was so huge, and we are still suffering. This is something which Pakistan cannot afford to do anymore. But there has to be a strategy, there has to be a proper contingency plan to look after the affairs there and make sure that our interest comes first. And this is exactly what we have done when we refused the Americans to operate from Pakistan, or, you know, took charge of certain bases. But anyway, I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Khuda Hafiz.